key is to just start getting feedback from kind of like the horse's mouth, right? The actual target people that you might be buying from, how important this domain image is. I mean, it really is like, it's the billboard. It's the thing that's going to stop people, and it may convince them completely to buy the product.
So is it profitable to be on the survey panel? Should Andrew and I go sign up, start taking surveys?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of That Amazon Ads Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. It's the king of main image split testing. We have Chen here from PickFu. You've probably heard about it if you're on LinkedIn at all. So Justin, thank you so much for joining us today. And we also have Steven here with us. How's it going, Steven?
I would say you don't even have to be on LinkedIn. Just if you are on Amazon, you have heard about PickFu.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, very excited to chat with you, Justin. Appreciate you jumping on. Why don't you, in case if anyone's maybe new to Amazon, never heard of PickFu before, what do you guys do?
Yeah, so PickFu is a DIY consumer research platform where we gather consumer feedback on kind of any aspect of your product decision-making process. So a lot of people on Amazon do know us for getting feedback on main images, because that's usually where people have problem points, where they start trying to figure out, like, why am I not getting the click-through rate? So they'll typically come to us, they'll compare their main image against maybe their competitors or maybe a variation that they have. And the big thing about the way PickFu works is that we actually, so we're going to go out, we're going to find the people, we're going to pay them to, vote on the different options. But more importantly, we're going to ask them to write down an explanation why they made that selection. And that's really where the true nuggets of insight are. And a lot of times when sellers come to us and they're testing these main images, the feedback invariably comes back, oh, your branding is not great, your packaging is horrible, like, I don't like your product design, like kind of all these things, and that they should have gotten feedback earlier on the process.
Right.
And so, a lot of people do use this for main image, but now more and more people are using us for product design, product sourcing, packaging, branding, any of those things that before you're sinking all that money into your manufacturing process, you're actually gathering some of this consumer feedback earlier.
Very interesting. Yeah, I could definitely see how, packaging, you wouldn't want to make that mistake after you've already made 500 units and have it at Amazon and you find out from a customer review that, things aren't up to customer standards. So definitely see PickFu as a really great way to split test a lot of things. I didn't realize that, I think in my mind, PickFu was primarily main image split testing. And it seems like you branched out into some of those other areas of testing as well. So that's really cool to see. Why don't you just walk us through some of that journey and what's kind of led you down that path with PickFu and maybe some of the developments that you guys have made within there over the last several years?
Yeah, so we did start with kind of an A versus B preference test. We've since expanded to up to 8 different options. And when there's up to 8 options, we actually ask people to rank in preferential order. So if they're not just going to choose one of 8, otherwise you may never get any kind of definitive answer, right? You might get 12.5% or something. So what we do is we do an instant runoff, which is kind of like what a lot of elections do. So we'll take all the second place, we'll factor in all those other preferential votes to make sure that we get you the most preferred option. So that's one way to use it. And so when you're doing those kinds of tests, you can test anything from, main image variations that you're working on, color variations you're thinking about sourcing, or of course you against your competition, which is, a very important thing to test. And another thing you may not realize is that you could just also gather open-ended feedback. So you don't always have to compare something. You can just put up your main image or a picture of your product, even a text description of what you're thinking about selling, and then asking people, hey, are you interested in buying this product? What do you think this product is? Like calling them all kinds of questions that you would ask your target audience. If you were to buy this product, what would you search for? Describe this in your own words, kind of all these different things you could ask. And just gather that qualitative feedback, because the key is to just start getting feedback from kind of like the horse's mouth, right? The actual target people that you might be buying from. And so we have all kinds of different audience targeting options, like nutritional supplement users or dog owners, cat owners, coffee drinkers, things like that. Very common categories that people are selling on Amazon.
Yeah, that's actually something that I think is really cool, is the ability to refine the audiences so you can
Yeah.
go after certain demographics, So now, for by the way, Andrew and I are both have both used PickFu. We think very highly of it. This is not an episode. This is not a pitch. This is not a sponsorship. Andrew and I often recommend tools to our listeners because it's just stuff that we use that we find valuable. But just so you guys know, it's not, none of this is paid. This is all like honest opinion. But part of why I love it is because I was recently have a client where all of a sudden sales just like plummeted like 40% year over year. I shouldn't say all of a sudden. It was a gradual thing that was going on. I suddenly took them over, and that was like the biggest thing we were trying to troubleshoot. And conversion rates were just in the gutter. And it was like, okay, well, what changed? So we took some of their images. We actually did 5 variations. We took 2 of our products, 3 competitors, and we compared them all. And it's really cool that you're not just getting a vote of which one won, but like you said, Justin, you're also getting responses. And I think we surveyed like 50 people. So it's a lot of responses to read through. You could go through each one individually, but you also have some AI summaries built in there that's just going to kind of aggregate all of the responses and give you the pros and cons of each listing and why the top one won and why the bottom one lost. And for everything, it came down to prices, which is pretty interesting. A lot of people said, we really like the design of this product, which is our client, but it was the pricing issue. And so now we know, okay, that's obviously a difficult battle to fight on price and margin and everything, but now we have the answer. Now we can start to think along those lines. What can we do in terms of, do we need to how can we get more traffic for cheaper, et cetera? So all of that's just super helpful and insightful. And what I didn't realize until after I ran that is that we could have refined that audience because maybe our target demographic, maybe we want to run DSP ads on higher income households or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We can run this again and just use an audience of a higher income household to see, does price still have that big of an impact? Do we need to, switch up our audience targeting a bit? So extremely insightful, like stuff that you can do. And all those surveys were like $30, $50 just to get that feedback.
Yeah. And another point on that actually is that, you were mentioning that pricing. Well, let me back up. So even when you're doing a general audience, like you probably did, you can actually see the demographic breakdown of the responses by, age or some of the factors that you want to choose. So, you could start with 50 or 100 general and then see like, okay, was there a meaningful difference between income or gender or ethnicity or something like that? And maybe there isn't. Which is great because then you can continue to target your polls in a general way. But if you're starting to see that differentiation, then maybe in the future you want to do more targeting so that you only get responses from that group. So that's a really good point. And we've got about like 90 different categories that you could target from. And if there's something that we don't have, definitely reach out and we'll look at this, seeing if we could build it. On the pricing point, we actually had an interesting case study where our customer who was selling headphones, and he was losing to his competitor. He just wasn't getting the click-throughs, as many clicks as his competitor. And so he actually started doing this iterative process of, taking a look at all the different competition's main images and started incorporating a lot of the different layout ideas. So, first he just made the image bigger to take up more white space, right? A common best practice, use up all the white space that you can. Then he started adding in the components that were going to be included. So maybe it's like, different ear size pieces or the carrying case and all that kind of stuff. And he kept iterating and testing against his competition. And in the end, not only did he boost his click-through rate, but he actually increased his selling price, €8 for the headphones. So like no change to the product or anything, just iterating on the main image. And he was able to do this. So he continued doing it down his product line and continued, increasing prices, increasing sales through the click-through rate. And so really awesome case study. And just the power of how important the main image is. I mean, it really is like, it's the billboard. It's the thing that's going to stop people, and it may convince them completely to buy the product. And a polished main image also just gives, like a different feel, right? Like before you even click into the listing. Obviously, your listing's got to back that up with, equally great content, but that is the first impression. So the book cover, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see how that could make a big impact in terms of just those small tests being able to inform larger tweaks to your account and everything. I'm kind of curious, with Amazon, they've been rolling out a lot more split testing, experimentation type features within Seller Central and things like that. You've also got the ability within sponsored brands now to have multiple creatives within your ad groups that could be cycling through and things like that. So there's this whole conversation of split testing, this and that going around Amazon. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on like what makes an actual good split test. And what do you think of Amazon's current split testing methods and experimentation tools that they're offering, as well as maybe just like some of the limitations to them and why you think that PickFu could be a better option for a true split test?
Yeah, so there's kind of points on both sides of things. So first of all, I'll say that like it's not a this or that. I think it is it's a compliment. If anyone who's tried the manager experiments know that first of all, it does take a long time to gather data, even if you do have a lot of traffic. Secondarily, like anytime you're running a live split test, you're kind of by definition losing some sales, right? Because you're putting up an option that's not as good potentially, or maybe your existing option is not as good. So, a certain percentage of the time you're not optimized on what you're selling. And then third, you're not actually getting any qualitative feedback on why one is doing better than the other. So you're just kind of, okay, well, I don't know. That's not really helping me necessarily for the future when I got to work on other products or other images. So the way that you would use them in conjunction is using PickFu to develop the creative assets. And then you could take the top two and then you could run a live test. And at least you're more confidently putting your best 2 feet forward. But now you're able to explore a lot of different creative directions privately off platform, and then understanding what it is about why something wins. So maybe it's the color, maybe it's the font, maybe it's a layout, or the dog that you're using. Maybe people like Labradors versus, Cocker Spaniels, which, we've seen a lot of interesting tests where just changing the animal that might be in there or the hand or whatever it is makes a huge difference. But you would never know that if you're just doing a live test looking at the stats. So the way that we recommend it is pairing it during that development process, that creative process where you're, maybe you want to try something kind of out of the box and it's like, all right, well, this is maybe off brand, but like, let's just try it and see if people like it. Or like a color scheme that maybe you haven't traditionally done. You wouldn't want to live test that stuff because it's very jarring. And if you were to back out of it, like people would just be, wait, what just happened? Like I thought they changed to pink, but now, it's back to black or whatever it is. So that's how we view it. We have a lot of customers that do both. We also have more customers that have done both and then just stopped doing the manager experiments because they've got so many things to work on that, why am I even wasting my time waiting around for this stuff? If I'm getting the good enough approximation from PickFu, then I'm just going to move on and kind of continue down like the huge number of listings that I need to optimize, as opposed to kind of waiting around for all these split tests to finish.
Yeah, right, for sure. So it saves a lot of time and it doesn't have as big of an impact potential on your account and stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. So with the sponsored brand piece, people a lot of times will say that they're split testing sponsored brand creatives. And so what they'll do is they'll have different ads with different creatives in them. They'll run one for 7 days and they'll pause that one, and then they'll run the other one for 7 days and then they'll run that one. Do you consider that a true split test?
No, I mean there's so many factors that are changing constantly. There's macroeconomic things around like people searching for things, but then of course there's things changing within the listings and your competitors may be doing things differently. And even I remember that's kind of how the old Splitly used to work, right? They used to kind of just run an image for a while and then like change it for you. But like, again, like the same issues where, if like you don't know what it is, maybe your competitor stopped buying ads and then like, oh, cool. Like we're all of a sudden like winning all the time, but that, you really don't know.
Right.
And so, and then again, you don't have the qualitative aspect of like understanding why. So yeah, I don't think if that's all you can do, I think that's better than nothing. But I do think may lead to false data.
Awesome. Thank you for that, because I hear all the time people calling these things split tests, and they're definitely not split tests because there are so many extraneous variables, changing variables on Amazon all the time that it's really impossible to actually have a true split test.
Wow.
And it seems like PickFu has kind of helped remove those variables a lot more cleanly so you can get more accurate and insightful feedback. So that's been pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, even when we talk to our customers, we try to suggest that they take a very scientific method approach to testing, right? Like try to change one thing at a time, hold everything else constant. The example I like to give for books is like, don't change the book title and the book cover design at the same time. Like test the titles as text first, nail the titles, then test different cover variations with the same title. But if you're changing both at the same time, like there's too many confounding impacts. So same with your main image. If you're tweaking fonts or colors or imagery, just like hold them all the same. Change the dogs. Like okay, cool. Like people like this dog. Let's go with that one. Now let's figure out the next thing that we want to change.
Yeah, Amazon PPC managers must have just skipped chemistry class and didn't learn about the scientific method. So
yeah, it's also just a great way. I mean, I'm going to take this off Amazon for a second, but it's not at all limited to Amazon. I mean, the different options of tests that you can do, you can test websites, you can test logos. I mean, pretty much anything. Even Andrew, there's a YouTube thumbnail comparison that we should maybe test some of our old thumbnail designer versus the new thumbnail designer and double check if there's some improvement there. I mean, I feel like you can, like the opportunity in being able to survey an anonymous group of people there's so much you can do with that. Like if I'm competing with a friend on like my dog's cuter, we'd be like, all right, let's put it up to a vote. Just literally take the two pictures, put it into PickFu and just say which dog is cuter. Like it's not limited in any way. You can just take any image, any screenshot. And like Andrew was saying, like with the sponsored brand test, and as Justin commented, like maybe for 1 week, you were both your ads were dominating top of search, but for one of those weeks, the top row of sponsored products was filled with deals, and maybe the other week it was Father's Day, and that's going to create a lot of volatility on both sides. So it's just really not super reliable. Or let's just say somehow you managed to get 2 weeks of virtually no other variables, like no holidays, no changes with competitor listings, and you ended up finding one of your sponsored brand ads did much better than the other, but it costed the other one that was a bad ad. You lost $1,000 on it. It's like, okay, you lost $1,000 on this A/B test. You could have spent $20 and gotten the results back within 30 minutes. Yeah. Too, instead of waiting 2 weeks. That's the other thing is like the response is so fast. You put in the survey, and obviously it depends a little bit on the size of the audience that you're doing. But if you're doing a smaller audience, you get results back within minutes, which, I mean, how do you even accomplish that? It's crazy fast.
Yeah. That's another thing we forgot to mention is that it does come back within 15 to 30 minutes. And what's great about that is that it allows you to really iterate on that feedback. Whereas, before, like if you were just doing live testing, like think about the iteration cycles. Like in a given year, maybe you'll do it a few times, but now you can do 10 times in a day and really just churn out something that's confidently going to do well. Where we get the people, so I'll touch on that because it's a common question, but we tap into the same consumer panels that Procter & Gamble or Kraft might use when they're doing longer form market research. So when they do market research, they use their consumer insights team, they work with a market research consultant, they program these very long surveys, they go out to the panels, and this will take weeks, and tens of thousands of dollars. And so what we try to do is we programmatically tap into all the same panels, but with our own layer of data quality and audience targeting on top of that. And anyone who's done any kind of public surveying knows the quality is a huge issue. If you pay anyone on the internet to do anything, you're going to get a bunch of junk data. And so we spend a lot of our time and our systems pruning out, making sure that people are paying attention, people are earnestly answering the questions and actually providing valuable input. And, since you've used the product, you know that when you read through it, that you're actually getting pretty good nuggets of information. So that's where we spend a lot of our efforts so that you guys don't have to know anything about market research or like how to clean the data, all this stuff. We're just trying to take all that away the process.
So is it profitable to be on the survey panel? Should Andrew and I go sign up, start taking surveys?
I wouldn't quit your day job. No.
Okay.
It's typically a side gig for people. Yeah.
Okay. So you can make more money off of, have it being the one selling the product that's
right.
being surveyed. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two major applications for our audience. Being an Amazon ads podcast, I think the first application is improving your ads primarily with sponsored brands. I think it's such a great way before you put a ton of media. Oh, do you do video? Can you do videos too on PickFu?
Yes.
Nice.
So you could do video
Big
comparison. You could also put up a single video. A way that a lot of people do use this for on the ad side is asking if if a certain message is kind of coming through or resonating. So maybe you want to, and this works actually really good for, secondary images. Like if you put up an image or an ad and say like, what's the key takeaway? Like, what do you think this ad is trying to convey to you? That's a really good way to tell like, oh, okay, like cool. They're getting the point that we're trustworthy or that it's sustainable or, easy to use or something like that.
Yeah. I could even see applications for like different stages of the funnel too. Like if you got like a more conversion focused ad, you could, kind of see if that's actually driving that product details and emphasis that you're looking for versus like upper funnel, looking if it's kind of conveying like a more general brand message, kind of like you were speaking to. So yeah, I could see a lot of uses for that. You got something?
Yeah, I remember when we were doing, back when Andrew and I were managing a large DSP client, DSP has some cool brand lift studies that you can do, which is a little bit different, but it's still a survey panel. And there were some questions in there that were like, I don't know, maybe not the best in terms of because they were pre-built questions. So I'm curious, like, Justin, in your opinion, since you've probably seen a lot of questions, if I'm trying to, I think the click-through rate stuff, it's like, your image, competitor image, or maybe two of your different images that you're maybe testing. A lot of times we talk about which one do you like better or whatever. But if your goal is really to increase conversion, and you're trying to get a sense of like, what is the weak point? Like where am I losing people on this product? Is it the price? Is it the utility or whatever? What's a good question that you would phrase to more focus on the conversion rate for your product, or to identify what are the weak points of your conversion?
Yeah. So one way to help test conversion. So there's a couple ways that I recommend. So one is you could actually do a crowdsource listing audit with PickFu. So a question that you could ask is, please visit this Amazon listing. What questions do you still have after viewing this listing? And then you could just put your URL to your product page. And that's always interesting because it has people going over, looking through your content. You could even ask a more pointed question if you want, like, why wouldn't you buy this or something like that? And those surface things like, is it washable? Is it reusable? Like I have questions about like where it's made. Things that maybe you thought you answered, but maybe you just aren't emphasizing it enough. So maybe you need to add that to your content or your, maybe in a secondary image that emphasizes that. So that's a really good place to start when you're trying to diagnose, like what it is about your page that's not necessarily converting. Another one to do is, and this kind of goes back to pricing and how you're perceived against your competition, but you can actually do a screenshot of not only in the search results, kind of like your main image with your, title and price and your ratings, and do that as a comparison as opposed to just your main images. So that does take in more the context of, the true market situation is that they've got 10,000 reviews, I've got 100 reviews, like here are the price differentials, like, and why might you be selecting and having people explain it, right? Like, well, I chose that one obviously because it's 10,000, or this one is like $5 cheaper. And what's really fun about that is that you can start doing hypothetical changes to the price or to the main image. And this is we actually built a mock-up tool that allows you to play with that. Since we saw a lot of people using Photoshop or, Chrome and Spec to just change out all that information. But, a lot of people don't know how to do that. So we actually built a mock-up generator where you can take a bunch of ASINs and just change the main image, change the price. And it's really fun to then hypothetically test a price, or maybe you haven't even launched this product and you want to see like, hey, if I come into the market where everyone's got 100,000 reviews but I've got this killer product design and like this new main image that like blows them out of the water, like at what price point do I need to come in and steal some of those clicks? And, maybe I'll try the exact same price. Maybe I'll try $5 cheaper. And you'll see a difference. And it's really cool to read through the responses and hear how people are rationalizing, like, well, I know this one doesn't have as many reviews, but like looks really good. And, it was cheaper. So like I would click on this one. So that's another way to kind of understand why, your clicks and your conversions may not be doing well.
Yeah. Something else that, there's just a lot of applications, right? So I think we're gonna just have to let our audience go and explore and experiment. But something I'm always trying to tell my clients is they'll be like, oh yeah, well, I'm reducing the price to like help conversion, but they just like lower the retail price instead of like putting it on deal.
Yeah.
Or they'll say conversions are really suffering because all of our competitors are on deal. And I'm like, why don't you just increase your price and then put it on deal or put it on coupon or whatever? And they're like, I don't think that works. And rather than just like, what I could do is just go run a PickFu thing. And especially if you have some, if anybody knows how to open up like the dev console, like developer tools on Chrome, that's what I do is I go in there and I take a screenshot, or I change on my browser on like my local copy of, I change what the prices are, what the deals are, just mess those around a little bit, take a screenshot, and then just upload it to PickFu. And then you can get real data, and then it's no longer just your opinion and your recommendation, but you can just say, here's the data. So lots of cool stuff you could do. But Justin, if people want to check this out or get in touch with you, what's to ask more questions, what's the best way for them to do that?
If they want to connect with me, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm super active on LinkedIn, so you can follow me and connect there. Otherwise, go to pickfu.com, psckfu.com, and it's free to sign up. It's also always as you go, so there's no subscription needed. And when you sign up, there's actually going to be like a free onboarding poll where you could actually try it out and see for yourself for 5 responses. So, we could talk about it all day long, but until you actually see it in action on your own product, that's when you're going to have that aha moment of like, oh, wow, this is actual feedback on my stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Justin. Any special deals for the podcast audience? If they send you a message on LinkedIn and they say that Amazon Ads podcast, do they get free credits or anything?
Okay. How about we do a coupon? How about we do a coupon for 50% off their first poll?
Nice.
With that Amazon Ads podcast as the coupon.
Nice.
Go.
There we go. You're welcome, guys. Always ask. And then Justin, final question before we let you go. It's the question we ask all of our guests, but what's the one lesson that you learned recently that you wish you would have learned a long time ago?
Unrelated to...
It can be completely unrelated or related, anything.
That's a good question. I think a recent lesson, I think, is to take things a little bit slower. I think I think in the very beginning of entrepreneurship, I think it was a lot of grinding really hard and like working super long hours. And I think just with older age, and I've got kids and all that kind of stuff, just recognizing that this is a much longer marathon than we anticipated. I mean, I was telling Andy before that PickFu's been around since 2008, and since its initial version of it, and we never thought it would go this long, and we hope that it goes another 10, 15, 20 years, and that's not really a pace that you can sprint at. So making sure that you go at a manageable pace. And I know that in this community, it's common to just really, hustle, and like the culture is like, very much go as fast as you can. But I think if you want to stick around for the long run, you kind of have to find a manageable pace.
Absolutely. A lot of wisdom in there. Justin, as we close here, just want to thank you so much for your time, and thank you for putting the facts and the feedback behind all of our featured images. Can't thank you enough for that. And for everyone else, tune in next week for another episode of That Amazon Ads Podcast.